Good afternoon. My name is Pat Hannon. I'm the Chief of Academic Development for United States Air Force School of Aerospace Medicine. Today we're going to be talking about the first three chapters in this book right here, which is the Cambridge Handbook of Multimedia Learning, which is edited by Richard E. Mayer. First thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about cognitive load theory, and then we're going to move on to the cognitive theory of multimedia learning. There are two types of knowledge acquisition that we're going to be talking about. The first one is biological primary knowledge, and this is knowledge that you don't have to be taught. This is something you just naturally know, or it's a little bit more like an instinct. You just know how to do it. Things like eating, walking, talking. And then there's biological secondary knowledge. This is knowledge that we have to have somebody teach us. It's not natural to us. We have to be taught, so we learn it from somebody else. The next thing we're going to talk about is the three types of cognitive load. There is intrinsic, extraneous, and germane. Intrinsic is essential material. That is what we're trying to focus on. That is the topic we're trying to learn. Extraneous is nothing more than distractors. What is taking us away from learning the basic material, the essential material that we're trying to learn. And then germane is the effective. That is essentially the intrinsic minus the extraneous. And that gives you your germane or your effective. Next piece that we're going to talk about is the architecture of the human brain. The three functions of the human cognitive process are working memory, keeping in mind that working memory has limitations, long-term memory, which does not have any limitations, and then schema. This is what we place newly found knowledge into schemes that we already have built in our long-term memory. The cognitive load theory is based on information store, that is the target long-term memory with change. We're going to try to change what we have in long-term memory. We also have borrowing and reorganizing, which is learning from others. Somebody teaches us how to do something, so we borrow their knowledge and make it our own. Then we have another system called randomness as genesis. And this is the guess and test method. So if we don't know how to do something, we guess at it, and then we try it out and see if it actually works or not. Next, we have the narrow limits of change. And this is actually a good thing because we can only change our long-term memory a little bit at a time. If we were going to try to massively rewrite our long-term memory, it would actually kind of blow up. Your brain isn't going to work, and you're done. You lose it all. And then environmental organizing and linking. This is where we place context into our thoughts and into our memories. Okay, so you have a different way that you act and a different way that you learn under different circumstances. Okay, I was prior military. In the military, I had one way of acting. When I was coaching youth athletic sports, I had a completely different way of acting, completely different way of learning. Next thing we're going to talk about is what is multimedia. Multimedia is learning from both pictures and words. And this is one of the definitions that Mayer gives in the book that we were talking about. Now, text can be either written or spoken, and pictures can be either static, animated, or in the form of video. There are three assumptions for the theory or cognitive theory of multimedia learning. The first assumption is that there's dual channels. This is processing information through either the eyes or the ears, so that's your two channels, either visually or through auditory. Okay. The thing is that you can actually change channels. So as you read something in your head, you actually turn it into sounds. So you kind of sound it out in your own head. So you can actually, even though it came in through your eyes, you will then change it in your head to as if it came in through your ears. The next thing is there's a limited capacity of the working memory. In the working memory, we can only shove so much in there before we get overloaded and we start shutting down and we can't gain any of the knowledge that we're trying to. And then we have active processing, which is cognitively active learner, meaning that the learner has to actually be paying attention and trying to learn something. Okay, so those again are the three assumptions for the cognitive theory of multimedia learning. The cognitive theory of multimedia learning is based on three types of memory. You have your sensory memory, which is your ears and your eyes. There is actually a memory or a part of your brain that actually focuses on what your eyes are looking at or what your ears are hearing. Okay, so that's a short-term memory. Then you have the working memory, where you take both of those, put it together, and you try to make sense out of it. You pick out the pieces you want to remember or the pieces that are important, and you try to move them onto your long-term memory. And again, long-term memory doesn't have limitations, but you have schemes or you have previously learned information that you try to place the new information into. There's two approaches to the research that is based on cognitive theory of multimedia learning. There is technology-centered, which is focused on the equipment or the technology out there. This is the one we actually kind of want to stay away from. The one we want to pay attention to is learner-centered, which is focused on how the human brain works. So even though we have these great technologies and everything, we actually want to focus on how does the learner learn, and therefore we can then approach our teaching and build our courses so that the learner has a better chance of learning. Today we covered cognitive load theory. We covered the cognitive theory of multimedia learning and a couple of different key points about those. Thank you very much.